We are live on Instagram and we are live on Facebook. Hey, y'all, so glad to have you here today. It's Tuesday, and I want to talk about navigating the ups and downs of life. Because sometimes it's true, let's just keep it real. Sometimes life does not feel good. Anybody got an amen, right? You're going through the ups and downs of life. The storms are raging, the challenges are coming. And sometimes we just feel like we want to tap out, like tap out, right? I did a sermon on that many years ago. Sometimes you just want to tap out. Now, sometimes you can endure and you can get through them and you feel like, yes, I can do this. And then sometimes you like, I'm done. I'm throwing my hands up. I surrender. I'm tapping out. And if anybody knows UFC fighting, when the fighter taps out, that means he's done. He's like telling the ref, call it, because he's quitting. And sometimes you feel that way. Let's just keep it real. Sometimes life doesn't feel good and the challenges are overwhelming. So what do we do? Because when we get stuck in that, and that's what we've been talking about this last month, that's what we've been talking about, how we get stuck in certain parts of our lives and we don't know how to move forward. And when the storms are raging and the challenges are coming one after the other and we're ready to tap out, means that we're stuck. And I talked about last week and the week before about how we get stuck in three aspects. We get stuck in our emotions. What do I mean by that? We get caught up in our feelings. You know that. Your feelings get hurt. You're stuck in that emotion of sadness or guilt or anger or frustration, or you're offended and you don't know how to move beyond that. And you keep replaying that story that allows those feelings to just marinate inside of you, and you get stuck and you can't move forward. So the emotions are big because we are emotional creatures. But then we get stuck in our expectations. And I talked about how we have rigid expectations. And our rigid expectations, meaning that we want what we want, when we want it, how we want it, and for it to be exactly how we have it in our heads. And those rigid expectations are unfair and unrealistic. And it always sets us up for disappointment. And then last week, I talked about how we get stuck in our experiences, those things that didn't happen that we wanted to happen, or those things that should have never happened and they did, and how we wish they didn't, right? So we get stuck in the past of those things, those experiences, those life experiences. And when we're stuck, we're frozen. And some people describe it as being trapped, or like there's a wall in front of you and you don't know how to press through. That's real talk for all of us. And I think when we act like it's not, that becomes the issue. Like, oh, everything is good. I'm blessed and highly favored. You know, those people who say that, yeah, you blessed and highly favored, but the storms come to you just like they come to everybody else. So let's be real about that. And let's talk about it so that we then know what to do. Because if I'm looking at your life and everything is always glam and glitter and gold and sparkly, then I'm looking at my life like, dang, what's wrong with me? No, it's nothing wrong with me. Is that some people are not honest about what's going on in their lives. Hey, Carla, glad to have you there on Instagram. Thank you for joining. I'm going to wave at you. And so let's be real that the storms come, the challenges come, and sometimes we want to tap out, and that's okay. Hey, Deborah, glad to have you, Deborah. Sometimes we want to tap out, and that is okay. Is when we want to tap out and we want to act like we don't, that it's not okay. Because again, we get stuck in those emotions, and emotions are energy. And we have to understand that when energy builds up inside of us, especially negative energy, it creates what we call dis-ease. And dis-ease always leads to disease because that energy has to be expressed. And so, what we need to do in order to get unstuck and respond to the storms and the challenges of life, let's one, acknowledge that there's an issue and be willing to release the emotions around it and not hold it in, because that's where we can't get any help. So, you can't address anything that you're not willing to acknowledge that there's an issue. So, we have to first acknowledge it. And then another thing we must do in order to respond to the storms of life so that we get unstuck is one, remember that tough times, challenging seasons, stormy weather shall pass. That this too shall pass. Every season changes life. Seasons change, they come and go. Feelings are fleeting, they come and go. So what we have to remember that where we are right now, it may be tough, it may be difficult, it may be heartbreaking, but this too shall pass. This season, this season will change. It always does. Nothing stays the same. And sometimes that's part of the storm, right? We don't like change. But what we have to learn how to do is how to dance with it, how to dance with the change, how to dance in the storm. Hey, Carla.
Hi. I don't know what you did, but I don't think it's good that I co-host. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, let me tell you, Carla, you're funny because I got a request that you wanted to come on. So let's take you off, right?
Sounds good.
Love you dearly. Love you dearly.
You're doing great.
Oh, bless
Thank
you.
you. And
Bless.
I think I need this today.
Well, Carla says she thinks she needs it today. She's on Instagram, and I'm telling you, we all need it today, Carla. So turn your camera off. We'll let you go. And yeah, we'll let you go. There you go. So we all need to hear this message today because it's real. It's real talk. And every time I come on, I'm being real with you. But in the moment, sometimes I'm talking from my heart space of what I'm experiencing. And life is challenging. And let's just understand that. And so once we acknowledge there's an issue, we can do something about it. And then remember that tough times and storms in life are temporary, that this too shall pass. And this is really important. I want you to reflect on when it was hard a couple of years ago, something that you went through a couple of years ago or many years ago. And reflect on that time and look back to say, I got through that. I got through that. And I made it through. I endured. I persevered. And look at how I overcame that. Because if you did it then, not if, and since you did it then, you can do it again. Right? Because that moment felt hard. That moment felt stressful. But guess what? It passed. Just like this will. We have to remember that. It's when we forget that we get caught up in our emotions and think that this is the worst thing ever and that life is never going to change or life is always going to be this way. We have to remember that we were here once before and we got through it. And the way I like to think of it is that my God is faithful. He did it once before. He going to do it through me again when I surrender to him. And then the thing that I really want us to remember is to avoid getting stuck in the negative thoughts, the stories that we create in our heads. Avoid getting stuck in those negative emotions, those feelings that are swirling around us. That is clouding our judgment. That's what we talked about. When we get stuck in our emotions, the emotions are clouding our judgment. And then looking very carefully at what we do and how we do it. Hold on one second. I want to figure out how to get you out of here, Carla. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I had some technical difficulties on Instagram. And so let's continue the conversation. This is what we have to do. We just have to continue because things don't always go right. And so we're talking about getting unstuck and what do we do when life doesn't feel good? The next thing we have to do is respond to life changes with resilience and determination to overcome. Resilience and determination to overcome. Because this storm that is you are in right now, or these difficulties or these challenges that you are experiencing because life just doesn't feel good, it's here to build you up. And I know that that's difficult because your heart is broken, your mind is feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling tense, anxious, and frustrated. I know, but imagine getting through this. Imagine what happens as you go through this season and you learn how to navigate the ups and downs. You are building your resilience, you are building your determination to be able to overcome obstacles instead of letting the obstacles overtake you. There is a part of building up. So, like, if we want to build up our muscles, what do we have to do? We have to work our muscles out. And I know I need to work mine out. We have to work our muscles out, right? In order to build them up. So, it's the same thing with the storms of life. It's the same thing with the challenges of life. We have to learn how to build up our resilience and our endurance as we navigate them, as we press through them. If we run the opposite way, or if we pull our covers over our head and try to hide and act like nothing's going on, we're not building that resilience. We're not overcoming the obstacle. The obstacle is actually overcoming us. And we don't want that to happen. So we have to learn how to navigate that and respond in a way with resilience and determination to overcome, rather than becoming bitter or depressed. Because there is a saying that says, oh, what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. That ain't true. That ain't true. Let me just say that. I know that ain't, it's not good English, but sometimes you just got to say it. It's not true. Because what doesn't kill you can make you bitter. What doesn't kill you can make you anxious and frustrated and depressed. It all depends on how you respond to the storms, how you respond to the challenges. And if you're responding in a way that's getting you stuck, then you will be bitter and angry and frustrated. You will be depressed. And so we have to learn how to respond with resilience and endurance and the determination to overcome, the determination to rise up. I would say that to my daughter often, and in fact, she got a tattoo that says rise up, like rise up above it so that you become stronger despite the storm that was trying to take you out. Like, nope, you're not doing it this time, because you are going to persevere and endure. And then the last thing I want you to know is recognize that change and transitions are a natural part of life, even when they're difficult. Change happens all the time. And when we don't want change to happen is when we cause a problem. We can actually cause a storm. We have to learn how to embrace change. We have to learn how to embrace the transitions that naturally come in life and embrace it so that we can grow through it. And learning to change with flexibility and courage can help us persevere. So while we can get stuck in our emotions, we can get stuck in our expectations and our experiences, yes, but we don't have to, because we can flip our focus and start to replace our negative emotions with some positive emotions like courage, hope, joy, peace, even in the midst of the storms, by focusing on the outcome that we desire versus the situation that we're in right now. Because the situation that we're in right now may not feel good, but what do we want it to be? How do we want it to end? And what do we have to do to make that possible? Start flipping our focus from what's wrong to what do we want to be right. And we have the power to do that. But because we get stuck in our emotions, we don't see it. It clouds our judgment. And then our expectations, instead of having rigid expectation, let's be more flexible. Instead of saying it has to be done like this, let's say, well, how can we get it done? And where can I compromise? And instead of being stuck in those experiences that didn't happen the way we wanted to, let's talk about creating new experiences by the way that we create a new vision for the ideal outcome. Because again, it's not feeling good right now, but what can I do to make it better? Because our response to life can be the storm itself, because we are responding in a way that's hindering us and causing us to be stuck. Or we can respond in a way that will help us and allow us to move forward, no matter the storms that are going on. And I used to say this all the time, that you are victorious in spite of the storm. Well, you can be if you change your thoughts about your storms, change your emotions and what you're doing and don't doing, and then speak life. Speak life into whatever the storm is that's ranging. It could be finances, it could be health, it could be relationships, it could be your career, that life is just turned upside down. It can be any of those areas. Start speaking life into them. Start focusing on what you really want, that ideal outcome instead of replaying the horror movie. And I'm talking from a space of my heart of I know what it's like when life doesn't feel good. But I also know that this too shall pass and that we have the power to overcome. The Most High always gives us a solution. He always has a ram in the bush. He always has an answer. The question is, are we going to trust him enough to ask him for help, to follow his guidance and whatever that help is, so that we get on the other side? Oh, I pray that this blessed you. I'm sorry for those on Instagram that we had to cut off, but I pray that this blesses you, whether you watched it live or the replay. Just be blessed and know that even though life doesn't feel good, this too shall pass. Be blessed.